Welcome to the Flushing Bar project of the Allegan Conservation District. We are at Sand Lily Farms. I'm Mark Ludwig. This is my home and my personal farm. And we're going to talk today about where we make flushing bars. Of course, we have tunes. Can't have a shop without tunes, my goodness. Build over here, kind of in our welding area. What's a flushing bar, you ask? Well, we're making movies today, so let's show you. This is what we're building. It's a tool that goes out in front of your farm tractor and helps scare wildlife out of the way when you're mowing hay, so we don't inadvertently injure them. This here is generation 2. A little bit different. We put the bar a little closer to the center, but suffice to say, we have another video about this that you can watch. And this video is about how we get it done and what we get it done with. Music today by Glenn Miller. Thank you, Glenn, for everything you did for our great republic. Anyhow, we start mostly with raw steel. We do use a quick attach plate. You can see it here. That's just, I set that up to show you how we actually stand it up so we can start welding the other pieces on it, like the front mast carrier there. And it's a good place to start with any. It's certainly nice to have some good blocking and extra pieces of steel and things, so you can set it all up to tack it together so you can then weld it. You need some way to cut metal. We mostly use this chop saw. I wish we had a bandsaw or a better non-abrasive wheel chop saw, but we don't. We did choose to have some of our pieces cut by the steel provider, just because this is not the greatest way to cut steel. Nice to have some squares, essential in fact, and some different levels. I find having the post level is handy for some of the different things I do. A lot of them have little magnetic stickies on them. Tape measure, of course. Also nice to have a mechanics scale if you've got one of those kicking around. Again, probably not essential, but nice. Clamps are essential. I don't use the magnets like this red thing here very much because they aren't very good for the weld itself, but they are handy sometimes for tacking things up. These clamps have been very handy. Let me get that cord out of the way. Nice to have some of the little deeper jaw. These are good for both the welding, also when we get to drilling, they're handy. A clamp like this with some jaws to it that can clamp round components down is nice. We do weld together some round components, including this piece here, where it's nice to be able to pin that down to the welding table. I do have a welding table. You know, it's just a simple little one. Be nice to have that. I do try to keep a fan going when I'm welding, and it's certainly nice to weld right here next to this big open door. Anyway, as far as other things you need to shape steel with, it's nice to have a grinder. I keep 2 of them so I can keep a brush in one at all times. Very handy to be able to brush the slag out of the welds and brush in addition to being able to grind the piece after you hit it with the bench grinder. We've also got a bench grinder. I've got both a grinding wheel and a brush on that, and that's very handy. It's nice to have it on its own pedestal so you can move it around and it's not stuck to some other piece of furniture you got out here. Nice to have the proper safety gear, essential really. I really like this face shield with the screen instead of a piece of plastic, just because it tends to hold up a little better over time and it doesn't get all scratched up. It's not perfect, of course. I recommend wearing your safety glasses in addition. Nice to have the auto darkening welding helmet. Not essential, but you know, they're awfully cheap these days. It's probably a good investment. And I got sick of my old gloves halfway through and bought new gloves. I recommend that people really pay attention to how they weld things. This thing really shakes out in the field, so please root gap all your essential welds and get it good and hot and do a good job. There's the non-root gap one, and yeah, just please do a good job with it, because I'm afraid it could fall apart if you don't. I keep a file around as well as the other grinding tools. I find this is nice for kind of final dressing on things. That one's a little on the small side, but it'll work. Nice to have a variety of files. I burn mostly 6011s. and you can see it's a pretty big size 6011. We're running around, I would say, an average of about 170 amps, so probably not a 110 volt job. You really need a 220 welder to get this done. I also like to do a cover pass with the 7014s in certain areas that it just looks a lot better and it's a lot easier to work with. The 6011 can be a little tough. We are running just an AC welder. Pretty basic. It's a little newer, it lights up a little better than the older one we had kicking around here that burned up. Again, probably not ideal. It'd certainly be nice to have DC at the very least. And ironically, we do have a lovely Miller wire feed welder, but it is a 110 and it can only tops out at about 130 amps, and that's not much of what we're doing here. We're pretty much cooking along at higher temperatures. Oh, hey, there's the mechanic scale. I was looking for this. The mechanic scale is just a very fine ruler. It's hard to get that to focus, but basically it has very small increments on it, so you can very precisely locate holes and things, which is a good jumping off point to talk about drilling. We started off this process using this, a small imported, not so great drill press, and we decided, this being Michigan, a fine place to buy used industrial tools, to just go all the way, and we bought a very nice drill press. This is a 1985 Clausing. They've been absorbed since then by Atlas Machine, but I am pleased to report they are still in Kalamazoo, Michigan. A few things you get for your money when you buy a nice drill. You get yourself a reverser, which is great if you bind up the drill. You get nice industrial disconnects installed. That's an aftermarket thing. And most importantly, we can dial it way down. We can dial that thing all the way down to 260 rotations per minute, which means we can spin this with it. This is about a 7/8 inch drill bit. Other nice thing, this has got what's called a Morse taper. So we can actually knock this chuck off here with a very simple tool called a drift. We drive it in there with a hammer, and then we can stick a drill bit directly in the collet if we have the right drill bit, which is a nicer way to do bigger holes like that. You also get a nice table that's easy to manipulate. This goes up and down very well. It's big and heavy and doesn't move around a lot. I already had this little vise with my smaller drill press, and that's actually proved nice to have for some of the smaller components of the machine. The bigger vise is nice to have for some of the big pieces we've got to chuck up while we're drilling things. Always got to use your cutting oil when you're cutting these large holes. Definitely a detail not to be missed. Before we paint, and we do like to paint them, we go ahead, we use the drill, or the brushes again, and we want to go ahead and brush that real good. And we also use our torch. We'll get out the oxyacetylene torch and go ahead and burn off any oil that's left over. The torch is also really nice for cutting the chain, because since you weld the chain on, you've got to get the galvanizing off the chain. That's kind of that white color there. We'll actually heat that chain up after we cut the link out of there to get it apart. We'll heat the link next to it, which is already preheated, and we'll oxidize all the galvanizing on there, and then it's a simple matter of brushing it off. You do want to be careful not to breathe too much of that zinc smoke. It's not hugely toxic, but enough of it will make you feel like you want to die for a couple of days. It's like a really super bad hangover that lasts for days. So yeah, blow that zinc gas out of there. I think that's about it. I'd like to thank the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which kicked this all off with a Conservation Innovation Grant a few years ago. They gave the money to the DNR, and the DNR, they gave the money to the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and they had the good sense to give it to us, and we built flushing bars. And thanks to Glenn Miller, whoever that drummer is. You can reach us on the internet, www.theflushingbarproject.org, or just search for us on Google. Thanks a lot, everybody. Go out there and build some flushing bars. Email us and tell you what you did. Send us pictures, put up videos. We want to see what you can do.